Hi everyone, good evening. Welcome to the CAC event. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Omer and I'm VP of Strategy and Case Interviews in the Case Analysis Club. This is Mark. If you don't know him, he's the president of the Case Analysis Club. And this is Cheryl, is also VP of Strategy and Case Interviews. Or something, yes. So tonight we're going to talk to you about storyboarding a deck. This is how to build a deck, and it will be very useful if you plan to do NINSCAP. It will be very useful if you plan to engage in any kind of presentation in Schulich, and you will because this is part of the course. Also, if you do case interviews, I found that it's very helpful to think of your notes in forms of slides. So you actually present them to the person interviewing you, and it will make sense. So storyboarding a deck is not actually how to do a case practice or case interview, but it helps. It gives you tools. Before we get onto that, and Shervin's going to do the storyboarding a deck part of today, we wanted to, this is a very general lecture, and you can take it 3 or 4 months from now, but we wanted to connect you to your existing reality, which is, it's almost November, and recruiting is going to start, I think, 2 months from now. And I think banks, last year banks came to Schulich around November, mid-November, so that's 2 or 3 weeks from now. So most of you, if you're first year, you'll be facing recruiting soon. Show of hands, how many people here are first years? Okay. How many people here are international students? Raise your hand. Okay. How many people here are career switchers? Which means what you did before Schulich is not what you want to do after Schulich. Okay, so we have a fair distribution, that's good. So I'm going to talk to you about 3 things. I'm going to talk to you about networking, which I'm sure you've heard a lot. You have to network all the time, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I'm going to talk about case interviews, case practice, and I'm going to talk about behavioral interviews. And maybe you've heard some of this information before. If you did, then bear with me. If not, then I hope it will bring you some benefit. So let's talk about networking. Why networking is important, and I think it's very obvious, it's very self-explanatory. Networking is important, especially if you want to switch careers, especially if you're an international student and you came here from a different country and you don't know anyone, and you want to go into an industry which practically is closed to newcomers. Because Canada has so many people coming in, so many immigrants, so many international students, there are between 80 and 400 applicants for every single job. Depends on the job, depends on the industry. That means you have to be practically Superman or something close for them to look at your resume and figure out that's the guy we want to interview. And it's very hard. Networking is what gives you the edge. 3 weeks ago, I was talking to an investment banker. And he described to me the way they interview for positions. They get this amount of resumes, and then the HR person goes through the resumes, take out all the resumes with typos, the ones that don't look good, the ones that really have nothing to do with investment banking, and then take all the, usually it's all the finance resumes, and they go out to the bullpen. The bullpen is where the associates or the analysts, junior associates or the analysts sit. It's not an office, it's more of a cubicle. If you've seen Suits, then this is where Mike Ross sits before he gets an office. He goes into the bullpen and he starts reading names. So, John, who here knows John Smith? Nobody? Shredder. Bill, who here knows Bill? Oh, you know Bill. You talk to him? Is he good? Is he a nice guy? Okay. Can I meet him? Okay, great. So, in the in pile. And about 5% of this pile goes into the in pile, the rest go to the shredder. So this is why you have to network. You really have to network, because when they see your resume, they have to know your name. If they don't know your name, the competition is so fierce, they won't even call you up for an interview. Again, unless you're Superman. If you have a PhD, if you worked in McKinsey for the last 3-4 years, then you could. But if not, and most of us are not, including me, including Cheryl, and including Mark, you have to network. So there are 2 kinds of networking. 2 kinds that I'm going to talk about today. There are lots, many kinds of networking. the informational interviews, and the networking and events. Now, every time you meet a person in a business setting, or not just in a business setting, in a setting that you think will be helpful for you in your business, this is a networking event. But we're going to talk about the official networking events and talk to you exactly about how to do this, and common mistakes. But let's start with informational interviews. What is an informational interview? Do you know? Who here knows what an informational interview is? Yeah.
You're just asking about what the job is like. So you're asking the person, you know, it's like different questions in the job at hand, in the industry, in the company, to get a better grasp on the company.
Okay, that's good. Let's talk a little bit about the setting of informational interviews. Usually you reach out to someone, he doesn't know you very well, or doesn't know you at all. You haven't spoken. This is the first time that you're reaching out to him. Or the second time maybe, he remembers you from some event, and you're asking for half an hour of his time. Usually, let's chat over coffee, let's meet and chat, this kind of thing. Let's chat over the phone. With consultants, a lot of times it's over the phone because they're busy and because they have like half an hour and you can't actually make it, so he calls you, do you have time now? And you say, yes, of course I have time now. I would love to speak with you. Thank you so much for giving me your time. Informational interview is building a relationship and getting to know the industry and the profession. As a student, most of us are really hungry for jobs, even desperate. And we want to work in some kind of an office, some kind of firm. It can be Bain, if we're going to consulting, Bain, BCG, and McKinsey. And we don't know the differences. And I would work for Bain, and BCG also good. McKinsey, great. But the thing is, when someone from McKinsey talks to you and wants to know why you want to work in McKinsey, saying you want to work in McKinsey because it has great name is not enough. You have to know about McKinsey. And you have to know about BCG, and why is it different from Accenture, and what differentiates it from Deloitte. You have to know these things. Because if you come to an interview and he's asking you, so why do you want to work for us? And you say you have a great name, that's not good enough. It shows that you're not really passionate about his firm and you haven't done your research. So first, the research. Actually ask the questions about the company that you want to work for, about the industry. Don't ask questions that you can find the answers online. So how many deals have Accenture been working on the last year? You can find that online. Or where are your offices? Definitely online. Ask questions that you can only get from him. For example, consulting always or usually involves travel, and you want to know if there's a lot of travel. But you don't want to ask, is there a lot of travel because, you know, I have a kid at home and I want to see him and I'm not really into traveling. And he will say, interesting. So at that moment he's, you know what? I'm so sorry, but I have to bolt to the office and see ya, and I don't even remember your name the minute I walk out of here. So you have to learn how to ask these questions. So let's take the travel question, for example. Don't ask, are you traveling a lot? Ask, what kind of global opportunities does your company offer? And he will talk about travel. He will say, you know what? We have a lot of branches or a lot of operations going on in Europe, so yeah, you'll see a lot of Europe, or yeah, we have tons of business in Asia, or yeah, we send our consultants to the States. And then you know a bit about the travel. It's about getting the information. It's not about getting a job though. He knows that you're an MBA student. He knows that you want to get a job. He knows that. You don't have to remind him. You don't have to say, you know what? Can you get me a job? Because why would he get you a job? He doesn't know you. He doesn't know your abilities. It's the first time you're meeting. There's not even a relationship yet. So no, he cannot get you a job, and if you ask him that, you're putting him on the spot. And people don't like that. They're giving you half an hour of their time, which is very expensive, around $600 expensive for an hour, so that's $300 that they're not billing, and maybe it will reflect on their bonus, so that's expensive. And that's on you. You have to prove that you're actually worth his time. So prepare your questions in advance. Prepare what you want to learn of this informational interview. And as hard as it sounds, because again, we're all hungry for jobs, even desperate, don't push yourself too much. Don't say, you know what, that's great, Let me talk for 5 minutes about me. Don't, really. I know this is hard. I know the temptation is always there. I know that when he mentions, if you're M&A, he mentions an M&A transaction, you want to say, you know what, I was in M&A too, and let me tell you about my transactions. And then you bore him for 7 minutes with your transactions because you're kind of nervous and excited to meet him, and he's listening because it's very polite. Because if he's a consultant, what he does a lot of the times with clients is listening and showing real interest. It's part of the job. It's part of the skills. So he listened to you, and you haven't really gained anything. So what do you do if you don't push yourself? What do you do if you, after you finish asking questions and researching, what do you do? Anyone? Not you. Okay, what's people's most favorite subject? Everybody loves to talk about themselves. So Stuart, what are you working on right now? Oh, that's an amazing question, because right now I have this really interesting project, blah, 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 blah. Now, this may be an actually interesting project. Listen. Actually listen. Don't wait for me to finish speaking. And we know that you're getting time on your timesheet with this consultant. No, actually listen. Because he's telling you what it's like to work there. And maybe you find out that, Bain is a great office. But maybe most of the Bain's business activity is in the States, and if you're in Toronto office, you're not really close to the decision-making process. Or maybe, Accenture is an amazing place to be, but there's a lot of travel going on, and that may really not be for you. Or Deloitte, how's the corporate culture? The fit is really important. Not because, and probably some of you are probably thinking, so yeah, fit. I can fit anywhere, right? Because I need a job, so I can fit anywhere. If you'll have me, I'll fit. Now the thing is, you won't. And they know this. So they will try to gauge if you fit in or not. So what you want to do is find out if you really fit. I'm of course saying apply anywhere. Don't always hedge your bets, apply anywhere. But really think about the fit. So when I'm asking Stuart, what kind of project are you working on right now? Tell me. He'll be thrilled because he loves talking about himself, because everybody does, right? So he'll talk about himself, and you'll get some insight about the project that he's working on and how exactly does he work on. For example, you've been a consultant from a renowned consulting firm, and he's telling you, yeah, for the last week, I've been bouncing from 3 projects like a ping pong ball. What does that say about the company that he's working for?
It's a lot of work involved.
Okay, what does that say about the decision-making process, about the staffing policy? Is it good, is it bad? I don't know, I'm not the one to judge, but you know now more than you did half a second ago when you asked him. So ask him about himself. Okay, so I want to get into Accenture, and Tony here works in Accenture. So Tony, I want to be a consultant in Accenture. How do I do that? That's not the right question, right? I mean, it sounds too pushy. So what do I ask? So Tony, can you tell me about your journey to Accenture? That's a great question, because Tony will talk about himself, which he loves talking about himself, right? He's a consultant, he's a type A personality, probably. He loves talking about himself. And he will tell you how he got into Accenture. So you see there were 2 rounds, and I networked and talked to this guy, and I was really interested in financial services, and this is what I did. His journey into Accenture is actually your journey if you can apply it. So he likes you now because he's talking about himself, and you get more insights. In the end of the informational interview, if you think that you did well, don't push your business card. If you did well, he will ask for your business card. It will happen. I've seen people, both in informational interviews and in networking events, pushing the business cards. You know what these are good for? Recycling, and someone told me that it's good for filters if you're a smoker. But seriously, it's not good for anything, and there is the bad pocket and good pocket. I'm sure you heard about that, right? There are consultants in the networking events, and they have that pocket that the ones that I actually want to look at and the ones that I don't want to look at go into here, and in the end I'm just throwing them into trash. I mean, you've seen, did you see that? The actual trash thing? Yeah. You've seen that, right? Yeah, it actually happens. It's not a myth. So this is about informational interviews. One advantage that you have in informational interviews, it's one-on-one. You don't have to compete with anyone. You don't have to get his attention. You're already there, so relax, enjoy. Ask real questions, not, so what did you want to be consultant? Here's a question like 20 times a day. Talk about him. In the end, talk about yourself. Networking event is harder. It's easier because it's set up for you, right? I don't have to talk to Abhijit and try to get his attention and email him like crazy on LinkedIn and make a call. Abhijit is already in Schulich. He's come to talk to me, so it's easy. It is hard because everybody wants to talk to Abhijit today. And I'm standing there like a tomato in the market between so many tomatoes, like standing there and waiting for my turn to speak to him, and it's hard. And some people are pushy, and we'll get to that in a minute. So it's easier, it is harder, but basically it's the same thing. You're asking about him, and you're asking about the info session. You're asking about the company. In recruiting events, I've seen a lot of mistakes being made. Most of them is being too pushy and being too hard. What does that mean? Cheryl, can you come here, please? Yes.
Are we tough?
Yeah. Push all the way. I won't push you. So I'm talking to Cheryl, and Stuart comes along. Stuart, come here. And I'm really nervous because he's BCG, and I really want to get to BCG. So when I see Stuart is coming, so blah 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 blah, and I'm like blocking Stuart, and Stuart can push me. He can't, right? Because this is Schulich and we're all civil. So he's maneuvering and he's feeling uncomfortable, and I don't care because, hey, blah, 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 and I'm listening to Cheryl, but Cheryl knows, because Cheryl has been in tons of info sessions. So he sees me blocking Stuart here, his fear. What does that make Cheryl think of me?
So,
Sorry?
you were asking?
So what does that make Cheryl think of me? When Cheryl sees me blocking Stuart, not letting Stuart come in, what, am I coming off as a team player or as someone that you want to work with? No, I'm not. Selfish, pushy, aggressive, too aggressive. I mean, aggressive is business is great, right? But this is too aggressive because I've cut someone out. Again, this is not easy because everybody wants a chance to talk to Cheryl. Cheryl is the BCG guy. Everybody wants a piece of him. Everybody wants to talk to him. But still, share with your colleagues because you're being judged upon how you interact with other people, and you can't know how you are interacting with the team, but you can know if you're a good guy or not.
By the way, just to add to that, we have a different way of networking than the school does, and we will go through that for our networking event coming up. It was probably one of the most successful networking events last year, and for good reason, because we work together instead of competing with each other.
But we'll tell you all about that.
That'll come eventually.
When our networking event, we'll have a networking event, and we'll tell you exactly how to make the best of it, not just for you, but for your friends too. Now, people usually forget, I pushed Stuart, and it actually worked, and maybe Cheryl didn't notice because I was so fascinating that Cheryl actually, maybe. But Stuart remembers, right? It's not nice. So when Stuart gets into Deloitte, and I'm calling him like a year from now, and I'm saying, hey Stuart, how are you, man? Let's meet for a chat. And Stuart knows I'm looking for a job, right? So he's going to say, oh man, Omer, I'm so sorry because I'm so busy. You won't believe how many projects I have. So how about 2017? Are you okay? Is that going in your calendar? That's what he'll say, right? He'll remember you. One last note on this. We've just gone to a recruiting session, and I remember one specific recruiting session with a company called Optimus, that there was this person there, a student, and she was really pushy, and you couldn't slide a word in. She was really pushy, she pushed everyone. You could stand there for 5 minutes, she wouldn't even acknowledge you, she would just talk and talk, and in the end, of course, what did she do? She pushed a business card. In case you haven't noticed that I'm here and you're talking to me for the last 10 minutes, hey, here's my business card. And I didn't see you in the interviews, by the way. She was mysteriously absent from there. So this is about networking in informational interviews and info sessions. Be nice to other people, because the consultants actually see that, and also other people will remember exactly how you behaved in info sessions. So Stuart will remember if I'm pushing him on the way. But if I'm including him, hey, Sure, this is Stuart. He's also in external case competition team. You should really talk to him. He's a really great guy. He's actually an actor, so he has a really different background. Blah, 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 blah. So Stuart likes me now. I have a lot of confidence, right? Because if I was insecure, I wouldn't need to do Stuart. But I have confidence in myself, so Cheryl also picks up on that. And the conversation is more relaxed because we're not competing, we're collaborating. Any questions about networking?
One thing I want to add to that, for the informational interview, the last thing that you should be asking in every single informational interview is, who else should I talk to in this firm?
Yeah.
And it's not a one-time conversation, it's something you should be continuing. If you talk to them once, they won't remember you. And Omer is a king at that.
Any other questions about... Okay, so let's talk about case practice. So, why is it important to practice cases? I think everybody knows why, because you go into a consulting interview, you say, hey, guess what, man? We have a business case for you. This is that one coming, right? So our client, blah, blah, is now operating in North America, is considering blah, blah, blah. You give the case, you ask questions, you do the notes, quick math, all that. So it's really, really important to practice. If you don't go into consulting, it's really important to practice. Why is that? If I go into a bank, for example, why is that? Do you know?
All interviews have that.
Sorry?
All interviews have case.
All interviews are starting to have cases now, including banks. So I went into a bank, it was second round at CABC, and guess what? I had a case. They didn't, of course, call it a case. They did it after 30 minutes and lots of math. But I said, you know, we have a situation for you. I want to see what are your thoughts. And here's the situation, and please jot down your thoughts. Now, if you've done case practice for consulting, this case will be easy for you, so easy. And you will blow them away when you do this the consulting way. Say, okay, so let me see if I got the objective right. So you're saying that CABC is now funding Pan Am Games, sponsoring Pan Am Games, and you want to see what kind of negative and positive effects would that be on CABC, right? Yes. Okay, so can I get 30 seconds? Here are my buckets, operations, brand, financial, and here are the pros and cons. And if you do that in 5 minutes, they'll be amazed. I actually see them, wow, okay, so you're good, you're structured. So that's why even if you don't want to go into consulting, BCG, McKinsey, Bain, you don't want that. You want a bank, that's good, that's okay. You may have a consulting case, you may have a case interview inside your interview. So you need to do that. That's why it's important. Why is it important to practice every week? At least once a week, do you know?
You stay in touch.
It's training. And the sad fact is that it's really hard to cram cases. If you have an interview, you will be, I think we received emails for the Deloitte interviews 3 or 4 days before. I received mine 3 days.
Tuesday and the interview was on
Tuesday and Friday, of course. So again on Tuesday, you have to cram out cases in 3-4 days. And it's not easy. It's actually impossible. I mean, it is possible. You can sit down and do cases all day long. The returns are diminishing by the case. It's like the gym, okay? You have to do a marathon. If you start practicing 2 weeks before, I don't want to say that you won't have any chance at all, but it's really, really hard. Same with any other sports metaphor that you can insert here. It takes time. Your brain has to adapt. If you don't practice every week, at least twice a week, but once is also good at this point, it will be hard for you at some stage to go to a case and do it right. And well, who are your competitors in case interviews for something? Do you know? Sorry?
Thousands of people.
Tons of people, but specifically who?
People with experience.
Ivy.
People with experience. But let's talk about schools. Let's talk about Ivy.
Yeah.
Ivy is the business school of the University of Western Ontario. The consulting candidates are also known as the Ivy machine. Do you know why that is?
Learning style.
Because they do cases like a machine, one after another. Tack, 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 tack. This is how they do cases. It's amazing to see them do cases. They're not confused. They're not saying, oh, okay, this is my third case, I'm sorry. They've done like tons, and they've done it right. There's also a downside for that. I mean, an interviewer sees one Ivy student after another, so he kind of gets the point, and Schulich stands out. But they have experience, and they're good. Rothman, not the Ivy machine, not so much of a polish, not the same mold. Still, they're very good. And Schulich is not a consulting school. Schulich is great. I love Schulich. Schulich is number one, as we say in the external case team. It's number one in the rankings. Tuition is cheaper, so it's good. Great ROI, right? It's not a consulting school, though. Not a lot of people get into consulting. A lot of people get into financial services, not consulting. So you're a bit behind. And you have to work on that. The CEC will help you. We get cases. If you want more, reach out to us. We'll practice with you. We'll show you stuff. But you have to practice. And don't hoard cases. Don't cram them right before an interview. It just doesn't work. That doesn't work. And we've seen that over and over again. It doesn't work. You can do 5 cases a day. If you don't do a case every week, that doesn't help. Now, I didn't bring my laptop, which is, now I think of it, it's a shame, but I've showed some people here my case Excel. At some point, I think it was last May, I realized that I'm doing a lot of cases, but I'm not really remembering all the feedback. So I've done an Excel with date, name of interviewer, name of case, and feedback. And over the summer, when I've done 3 or 4 cases every week, except for the time that I was on vacation, then I did only 2 cases a week, I could actually see myself improving because I had all the feedback. Do that. That's my recommendation to you, my personal recommendation to you.
Just to add to that, he was really good at keeping track of this. I've seen so many people that come 3 days before an interview and go, hey Mark, can you teach me how to do this? I have an interview at Deloitte coming up in 3 days. And I try not to laugh. It's one of these things like a guy coming up to you and saying, look, I bench 100, I need to bench 250 in 3 days. I can teach you the technique, but it's still going to kill you. So keep that in mind. More than 1 week isn't enough. 1 a week is enough. 3, 4, and don't stop. And if you can get to 80 interviews by the time you start interviewing in January, you'll all get jobs. I almost guarantee it.
Yeah. Now the cases are easy. Why do I say easy? Because cases are hard, right? Especially in the beginning. It's not a very rewarding experience. You feel like an idiot sometimes. You get this case and you don't manage to do anything. You don't get anything in the case. So it's not something that you want to do over and over again because nobody likes to feel stupid. But you're improving. You need to get to the point when you enjoy doing cases. It may sound like science fiction to some of you. Enjoy doing cases. Cases are I hate doing cases. I do them only because I force myself to. When you start enjoying doing cases, you know when you reach the point that you're doing well. You're saying, oh wow, another one. I want to see something different this time because I've done profitability. I can do market sizing in my sleep. Market entry, that's a joke. That's a no-brainer. I want to see something different. Give me something twisted. Give me something with a twist. Give me like a McKinsey one, but a different one. Give me a BCG one, but really drill me down with the details.
Or do it drunk.
Yeah. Or do it on a plane. Which I did, by the way. It is challenging, I can tell you that. Or do it on a jet lag also. But never mind that. Do cases and practice cases to the point that you actually enjoy doing cases. You do that, you're good. You want to add?
I think we've got about 5 minutes left. So.
Okay, so let's talk about behaviorals and why is it important and what do I have to say about behaviorals. Why is it important, do you know? I think it's pretty self-explanatory, right? Every single interview you'll have will be behavioral. Unless you go to work for some IT company which only tests your technical skills, and that happens. Every single interview in consulting will be behavioral. Why is it easy, though? Do you know? Why is it easy? Why is behavioral easy?
Same questions asked all the time.
You can prepare for it.
You can prep for it, right?
You have the structure.
Okay, yeah.
Well, you need not prepare. You don't have to.
You don't have to prepare.
I mean, you have to be.
You have to be yourself, right?
Yes.
It's your resume. Wrong! Wrong! You have to prepare like hell. You have to prepare like crazy. This is harder than the cases. Most people do not fail on cases. They do not fail on cases, I'll tell you this. They fail on behavioral. Because they think it's easy, right? This is me. I'm talking about myself, and I love me. So, Mark, I think, do you have a behavioral lecture? Or did we do
We're
that?
doing one.
We're doing one.
One thing to keep in mind, you'll walk out of every behavioral and they'll always make you feel like you did a great job because they don't want to get
kills
sued.
on behavioral. Everybody does a great job. You're walking out, I nailed this.
This is the same kind of spreadsheet.
Oh yeah, this is the feedback in the case study. Everybody's killing on behavioral. Can you read that?
Yeah.
Why is that? Because the interviewer wants this to be a positive experience of the company for you. He doesn't want you walking out and say, those Deloitte guys, they're fucking horrible. I hate them. I don't want to work for that company again. Because he knows, if he's smart, that maybe you won't be a consultant for Deloitte, but you may be a consultant for Accenture. And what worse, in 10 years, you'll be hiring Deloitte or Accenture. And what we remember from Deloitte is going in and remembering that guy, he was a dick. I'm not hiring these guys and giving them like 2 million projects. I'm hiring these guys who I never heard of. I know they're good, they have a reputation. These guys, I don't know, bad experience. So behavioral is always good. You always do great. Most of the time you don't. Because even though you talk about yourself, you're not selling what they want you to sell, and you're not showing what they want you what they want to hear. You talk about yourself, but you're not focused. You talk about yourself, but this is not the car or the star model. You're saying things that perhaps shouldn't be said. You shouldn't have said them. So, Stuart, are you thinking of just consulting or any other venues? You're a smart guy. You probably have lots of options, right?
Only looking at consulting.
Only consulting. I mean, maybe sometimes I dreamed of iBanking, but that's not for me. I'm not going for anything else other than consulting. I have the drive. This is me. You want me as a consultant? This is what I get. This is what I want to do forever until the day I die. And if there's an apocalypse, then a zombie apocalypse, and after I come back as a zombie, I'll still do consulting. I'm so passionate about consulting that I don't think of anything else ever. Why is that? Because if you're thinking iBanking, and you may get an offer, you may go to the iBanking, and they don't want that. They want to hire the best person with the best drive. So this is the kind of question that, it's very innocent, and I'm asking it, right now, in a non-innocent way, but the interview will be asking it in a more innocent way. So, hey, you're a smart guy, and you already build a rapport, so you're laughing, and you let your guard down, so that's nice. So do you think of, you're a really smart guy, what did you think of doing except consulting? What happens if you don't get into consulting? Oh, if you don't get into consulting, they have a backup plan with the banks. Yeah, and guess what? You're going to need it. Pretty soon. Because you're not getting into consulting at this firm. We don't have time, so we'll have a complete behavioral lecture. But trust me, behavioral is what you probably fail on, not cases, if you've done it.